So I just wanted to give you a quick look at soundbar that I've just bought and probably almost certainly sending back. It is the Samsung MS550. Now, I'm looking for an all-in-one soundbar. So I'm not looking for something that's coming with, you know, the whole surround setup, the rear speakers. I don't want a separate subwoofer. So it's just an easy setup, an all-in-one soundbar. And I've been using the kit sound Ovation till now, which by the way is fantastic value if you're just looking to, you know, a little step up from your normal TV sound. You can get these now for £60, 60 watt output. Yeah, it's going to be pure stereo, but a massive upgrade. If you're not looking for that huge sound, if you've got neighbours, you've got a problem with a pucker surround sound system, you know, with massive bass, that's not a bad option. Now, I was looking for something that's a decent upgrade on that. And Samsung have come out with a new range that they're calling their Sound Plus. And they're saying, we've got this new tech and we no longer need this separate subwoofer. We can do it all in the speaker. And yet, alongside that, of course, they're still selling soundbars with a separate subwoofer. Because at the end of the day, you need a big box for deep bass. So you're not really going to get the sound you would get from a separate box, but you're going to get decent bass. Now, this is rated down to 50 Hertz, which isn't massively low, but it's low enough that you can, it's an obvious feel and, you know, sort of kind of hits you in the tummy, but it's obvious bass. If it was a normal Bluetooth speaker and it was, you know, down to, you know, 4 whack at 50 Hertz, you'd be thinking it's brilliant. For a cinema kit, it's not that great, but if you're not looking for, you know, a really great system, it's not bad, it's adequate. Now, it gets complicated. So they have, this is the little brother to the MS650, and this has 6 speakers. It's a 2.0 soundbar, which means there's no center speaker, there's no separate speaker. So the point, if it was 0.1, it would have a separate subwoofer. If it was 3.0, it would have stereo plus the center speaker, which is what the MS650 has with 9 speakers. This has 6 speakers. Now, all the reviews, all the decent reviews that I've seen are for the MS650, and they're universally great. People seem to love that speaker. I haven't heard it. It's like nearly, I think it's like retail price is $499, and this retails like $400. However, they're selling these on eBay for £280. I thought, well, it's only, you know, although the Samsung, I think, are saying this is 420 watts and the bigger one is 450 watts. RMS, which is what counts, this is 120 watts. The 650 is 150 watts. So not a huge difference, and I thought for what I want, it's slightly smaller. I thought, okay, it hasn't got the dedicated center speaker, but I thought if the 650 sounds that good, apparently, it's going to sound, you know, it should still sound good, and nearly half the price of what you can get it for nearly half the price of what it's retailing. So I thought I'd take a chance. However, now, as I said, now I've actually got it. The problem I have with it is, although the bass does go down to 50 Hertz, you know, when you first hear it, yes, there's that big impact. It's dynamic. If you've not ever heard a proper cinema system, you're going to think, wow, this is brilliant. However, if you've got an ear for audio in that way, if you're into your hi-fi and stuff, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's a disjointed sound. And by that I mean, yes, you've got a lot of clarity in the high end, which is important for dialogue, obviously, but it's disjointed from the bass. So the bass only, it's like, it seems to be lots of like lower bass rather than upper bass, where it would give it some warmth to the sound as well as the mids. And it's disjointed in, if I get the volume just enough, just right for speech, when the low end kicks in, it's way too loud. Now I know that's the whole point, you know, when you're listening to watching a movie, but it's disjointed in a way that I don't think it should be. To me, it doesn't sound quite right. And as I say, it said it lacks warmth and it lacks the mids, so it's very tiring. So you get the high end, and which is nice at first because you know it's giving you clarity on the speech, but it's a very tiring sound. So it's kind of finished sound. I have to say, actually, it doesn't sound quite right, the high end. So it doesn't sound very natural, very clear, you know. But to me, it's almost not quite sibilant, but it's like it's harsh. So yeah, it's a cold, clinical, harsh sound to me. I'm sure a lot of other people are going to love it. However, I wonder how the 650 sounds, because a lot of people who are into hi-fi say it sounds good even with music, which these things don't normally. So that's my feelings on it. But as I couldn't see any decent reviews out there, so I just thought I'd let you know my thoughts on that. Whether you've got my taste or not is going to make a big difference to whether what you hear is the same as what I hear. But I have to say, I like a warm sound, and I like this, you know, and I do like bass, but it needs to come together with the rest of the frequency range. As I said, there's a real problem getting the volumes right where you can listen to the bass. Now, having said that, you can adjust the bass. By the way, I have to say, I really like the simple volume remote that you get with these. It's not a normal volume up and down. You've actually got a little click on these levers. So if I want the volume up and down, push it up, push it down. I really like this. And there is a separate control for bass. So yes, you can take it right down. It goes from like -6 to +6. But having said that, it just makes it even more anemic. So I couldn't quite get the sound quite right. So I'll just give you a quick look at what this is like in use, and also I'll give you some comparison clips as far as you may find it helpful. By the way, you get a couple of wall mount brackets to go with it. So that comes with it. As I said, the remote comes with it. You don't get an optical cable with it. What you do get is the power lead. Now, so this makes a lot more sense if you've actually got a Samsung TV, because on the rear you have a pass-through for the TV power. So the soundbar itself plugs into the socket, and then you can actually plug the TV straight into the soundbar, which may or may not be useful to you, but it is a feature, and I believe it only works with a Samsung TV. The other reason it goes well with Samsung TVs is because the Samsung TV remote will work both the soundbar and the TV. Now, actual inputs. Now, it does have a Wi-Fi feature, so you can use it, you know, to have music all around the house. So if you download the Samsung multi-room app to your smartphone or whatever device, you can add several speakers, and then you can play music via your device, and it will play on all the speakers. You can also use the app to update the actual soundbar itself. You have a USB slot, so you can actually directly plug a dongle in, say with your music, and play it directly that way. I'm not sure why you would, but anyway, one HDMI in, one HDMI out, but it does support ARC, so it supports the audio return channel. That's really good because it basically means you've got two-way communication via that HDMI. It means you could, if it had more HDMI ins, you could plug all your other bits and bobs, your Sky or whatever, your Blu-ray player, into the soundbar, and just have that one cable going to the TV. Don't even need the optical out, and your TV could communicate with everything. However, it's only got the one HDMI in. Of course, you could multiply that HDMI slot, but anyway, it's better to have it and not have it. It does pass through 3D, but it doesn't pass through 4K. So that is something to bear in mind. And the 650 does support 4K pass-through. I'm not sure. I don't think this supports HDR either. but as I said, it's the lower end of the system, of the range, and maybe at this point something you wouldn't use anyway for someone who's buying this kind of soundbar. By the way, so it also has a 3.5 auxiliary in. Obviously it has the optical in. Now what I don't like about it is that everything's at the side, so you've got to bend stuff to get it in. Even worse if you're actually using the auxiliary spot, because it's even smaller, so you really need a really small plug at the end of that to get in, and then you've got to bend it round, and then this all folds over. So yeah, I actually find that quite fiddly. I'm not a fan of the way they've done that. So then you bring it around, so you would turn it on, and it would say on, and then you'd use your, so if I want, now why I say it's fiddly to do the treble, suppose I want to actually adjust the treble. First I've got to press the function button, and there are several functions on there. Anyway, so the one I want is the treble, and then you don't use the volume or anything, you use the circle one, and then you go up and then you go down. So I don't know, it's separate, it's completely kind of separate system to the volume and the bass. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, whereas those buttons work well. So you adjust your inputs via your input button, your HDMI, obviously what comes on auxiliary start first, if it's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, so I support Bluetooth if you want to connect via the USB. Anyway, it's all on there, so it's all digital, so it's all obvious. Of course, it does support surround sound, theoretically. At the end of the day, it's a stereo speaker, so it's not true. I think it only decodes 2 channels anyway, so it's not real surround sound. And I have to say, that is the other problem I have with this speaker, is they advertise it as being much wider than your normal all-in-one soundbar, but it isn't. It's really doesn't leave the confines of the box at all. So that was the other problem I had. I'm not getting a wide image. It doesn't even feel like pseudo surround. Yeah, that was really disappointing. I didn't get a 3-dimensional feel from it. As I say, I don't know if 650 would have been any better. I assume they were going to be similar, but from the sound of the reviews on that and my experience of this, I don't think they are. The one thing that does work well with this is the smart mode, which is basically a dynamic. It adjusts it on the fly to what it thinks is being played through at the time. I found that does actually work quite well. So I didn't really use the surround modes, which is obviously you've got music and clear speech and all the normal ones. But yeah, I mean, a lot of processing going on kind of kills the sound. So I'd rather just use it in straight stereo mode or use the smart mode. And then you've got the volumes up and down. So it goes from like 0 to 100 on the volume. It does go pretty loud. As I said, it's, at the end of the day, in real terms, 120 watts. It's pretty loud, you know, for a moderate sized room. And the bass is adjustable, but it's a very... Look, some people would like this kind of bass because it's what they say, oh, it's a quick bass. You know, it doesn't have the resonance and what that I kind of like, but it's a sharp sound, and they probably would say, oh, well, that's more like real life. Not to me, and I like a warm sound anyway. So yeah, that's my feelings on that. And just to say, you know, comparing the two, I still prefer listening to the kit sound, which I think they've discontinued now anyway, and you can get real bargains on these, especially if you buy them second. As a brand new 60 quid, I mean, that is absolute bargain. So what I'm going to do is play, well, I'm going to give you 4 clips. It's really hard to give you an idea of how it actually sounds in real life, because obviously you can't get a sense of how wide or narrow it really is, because you're listening on your own kit. It's never going to be the same. I know you can do these spatial recordings and you put your headphones on, but as far as I'm concerned, the best way to kind of get an idea of what it's going to sound like in reality is to compare it to something else, hopefully something you know. So what I'm going to do is compare it to the TV sound, compare it to the kit sound, and compare it at 35% volume and 75% volume. Obviously in real life, whichever source of sound you're using, you're trying to get the volume that you're comfortable with. So I've adjusted the recording so the average volume is the same across all the recordings, because I think that's more to how you use them in real life. Having said that, of course, the soundbars go a lot louder than the TV. However, I think it's the best way to do it. So I haven't adjusted them for peaks. If you just did a straight amplification of each track, that's what would happen, and it doesn't favour the ones that are more dynamic. Obviously, this is dynamic, so if you just did the peaks, it would make the less dynamic ones sound fuller. So I've adjusted them for the average volume, and so what you're really listening for is the quality of the sound. Obviously, you can take from that what you want. Obviously, you don't need a sound clip to tell you that that's going to go lower at the deep end than the kit sound, and they're both going to go lower than your TV. But hopefully you'll get a sense of what it really means in reality, especially if you've never used a soundbar before, because at the end of the day, these are not for people who've already got a home cinema kit, because they're never going to match something like that. Even if you've got a soundbar with a separate subwoofer, it's not going to match that either. You're going to miss that low end. But not everybody likes that. Maybe you just want, a louder sound and more quality to the sound. So these are my clips.
They're hiding something. Come on, you don't know that. They lied to us. We never escaped. It's all just been part of their plan.
What do they want from us?
The maze is one thing. The two kids about to last one day out in the scorch.
What the hell? They're hiding something. Come on, you don't know that. They lied to us. We never escaped. It's all just been part of their plan.
What do they want from us?
The maze is one thing. The two kids about to last one day out in the scorch.
What the hell? They're hiding something. Come on, you don't know that. They lied to us. We never escaped. It's all just been part of their plan.
What do they want from us?
The maze is one thing. The two kids about to last one day out in the scorch.
What the hell?
The course of...
They're hiding something. Come on, you don't know that. They lied to us. We never escaped. It's all just been part of their plan.
What do they want from us?
The maze is one thing. The two kids about to last one day out in the scorch.
What the hell?
So just looking at the breakdown on the graphs of exactly what's going on. So here's the TV. You can see cut off about 15,000 hertz, and I have to say it's probably a limitation of the soundtrack I was using. It was just a part of a trailer. It wasn't the greatest soundtrack in hindsight, so I think it actually only went to 15,000 hertz anyway. It's not particularly linear, and you can see it's cutting off from 100 hertz. Obviously, it's just the TV sound. You're not expecting anything spectacular, but just as a baseline, that is the TV, and basically, I'm surprised actually that there's anything at 50 hertz, but there's a little bit. But the cutoff is at 100 hertz. Going to the kit sound, immediately you can see the more body in the sound. Again, I mean, it's going up to what, about 18,000 hertz. Which is probably a limitation, but anyway, you can see it's going higher. It's got more top end, more body. The bass is coming down to like 50 hertz, and even little bits under that. So altogether a better sound, as you would expect. Now, the actual Samsung soundbar itself, the MS550. So this is at 75% compared to the kit sound. Again, a little bit more fuller sound. It's quite linear. It's actually more linear there than I was expecting, because I didn't really get a sense of the mids, but doesn't look too bad there. Actually, yeah, going a little bit higher than the kit sound at the high end, but I'm sure it's hitting the limitation of the soundtrack anyway. And the bass, so you're cutting off at 50 hertz, but it's dropping smoothly. I mean, it's only rated to between 50 hertz and 20,000 hertz, and you know, pretty unusually, that's actually quite accurate. But you can see a little bit better. So yeah, compared to the TV and then the kit sound, again, another step up. But the interesting thing, that's at 75% volume. At 35%, you can actually see at 35%, there's a bit more bass there. So I mean, it's cutting off a little bit below the 50 hertz, and it's, you know, you're getting little bits all the way down. Whereas on the 75%, it really cuts off at 50 hertz. The high end obviously is identical. Maybe it's slightly less body, but what I take from that is there's quite a bit of bass reduction going on as you go. Well, I mean, it's quite normal, but I wasn't really expecting it at 75% and with this particular speaker. You know, in smaller speakers, they do that because it cuts down distortion and resonance from the small boxes they're normally in. But yeah, it actually is cutting the bass at just 75%. It's quite obvious. So yeah, so I mean, pretty much as expected. A huge step up from TV sound, another step up from a cheap soundbar, as in the kit sound. But in reality, not a lot of stereo image, and it's a very clinical sound. It's not the kind of warmish sound or sweet kind of sound that I like. And I think, and as I said, it's a bit disjointed, very hard to balance both the big thumps that you're going to get in the soundtrack with just normal speech. And I guess that's going to be taken care of if I'd got the 650, because it has the dedicated center channel speaker. So hopefully you got something out of that little comparison, something out of the whole video. It's really hard, you know, comparing speakers, because it's so subjective. Everyone has a different idea of what they want to hear, and difference of opinion. At the end of the day, we hear things in a different way anyway, just because of biology of the human ear. But as far as I'm concerned, it's very tiring. It is dynamic, but it's a very tiring sound. I don't particularly like it. Thank you.
UK